Here in 2017, the ideas of progressive metal and progressive rock may feel a little bit more well-defined. At least some people have tried to define them with a nice slice down the middle. In the past, it wasn't something that was always that concerning, and even as recently as 2014, it seemed like there were a lot of bands that tread that fringe line. There was a band that always kind of did that in Nightingale, and they returned in 2014 with their 7th album, which was entitled RETRIBUTION, and it showcases, through the power of the one and only Swano, masters of albums such as the 2 Crimson albums from Edge of Sanity, to really display just sort of where that line kind of is, that little invisible line in between prog rock and prog metal, and hover and sort of jostle his way onto one side or the other, in order to show just how much they hold hands and how little it actually matters if something is prog rock or prog metal. This album, their 7th, is one that is sort of once again displaying some of that same themology that you've gotten throughout their career, especially on the musical front. It's an album that is really accented a lot by these sort of calming riffs that you get. They're ones that do not hit as hard as his work with other projects, especially whenever you consider Edge of Sanity. In fact, a good way to describe it is consider Edge of Sanity to be Porcupine Tree, and then Nightingale is similar to Steven Wilson's solo project No Man, where the ideas are different, even though it may be still within the same heavy metal, or in the Wilson case, progiverse. So, On Stolen Wings starts this one off, and if you're unfamiliar with Nightingale, this is a great introduction. It shows you how his riffs can definitely have a calming exterior to it, and how the keys and some of the other fundamentals that are presented by Nightingale are able to formulate the foundation of what the sound really is building toward, and why it sort of occupies that fringe space. It's not quite kind of chillaxed enough for people to want to call it prog rock, but it maybe isn't heavy enough for people to want to call it progressive metal. That's why being right there in the middle is actually a nice shade of gray that Nightingale is able to use, especially whenever you consider older albums such as Alive Again, which showcase that just the same way. So Dan already had a very great experience, or a lot of experience, kind of tethering that fine line. Lucifer's Lament, the 2nd track off of this disc, however, is fantastic. This is where you really get a little bit more of that songwriting prowess that we know from Swano. And it's amazing with all the projects and different things that he's been a part of, that it still is a process that is cranking out really great, very thought-provoking, or at the very least, just fantastic sounding tracks, as this one is able to really explode its way forward, but still provide just enough of that sort of softness, that soft register, in order to really drive the point home that this is not going to be 100% a heavy affair. It's instead going to jostle its way back and forth in a way to try to unify the two ideas and concepts together. Chasing the Storm Away and Warriors of the Dawn certainly give you those same vibes, and almost showcase that he is kind of channeling some energy that is going to eventually come to projects that would come in the future. Think 2016, if you know what I'm talking about. Forevermore and going into Divided I Fall are ones that are able to once again showcase that sort of fine line. And it's able to do so in 2 very different ways, displaying some of the softer elements as a more prominent force on one side, whereas on the other side, it's something that showcases a little bit more of that edge, a little bit more of that shreddability. It's not something where the guitar is going to play a major principal factorum onto this album. It isn't something where you're going to hear guitar solos shredding on each and every single track. But whenever you do hear them, is first of all a very welcome respite from what you were getting before, but second of all, it's also something that shows that it's not a necessity. It isn't something that's required on every single song, because then the idea starts to get a little bit old or a little bit tired. Instead, it's something that on this project it is reserved for whenever it is necessary. Consider what you got from the previous Threshold release that we just talked about a couple of weeks ago, and you'll understand what I mean. While that one did boast a lot of rock and some shredding from the guitar, it was also one that was able to do so and stay so fresh, considering it was embracing a bunch of different styles that were coming together to make that album the beast that it truly was. It wasn't something that felt old because it was being used all the time. It instead felt very fresh, considering it was being used underneath a different umbrella each and every time. That's kind of what you get here, only it's instead a minimal usage of the guitar solo with that amount of power. The Voyage of Endurance, and 27, which is Curse or Coincidence. A very odd song title, but very odd song as well. Once again, utilizes that soloing capability in order to drive the point home only when necessary, and also showcases some of the strongest songwriting prowess that is located on this album. All in all, Retribution can be seen as Dan Swano really re-embracing the Nightingale philosophy and re-embracing the Nightingale sound, the style of writing, which had been sort of abandoned for quite some time, since the 2000s, and finding himself right back in the form. You know, it isn't something that feels like he has lost his edge whatsoever whenever it comes to this band. He still has the ideas, he still has the drive, and this also shows that he still has the chops. Everything about this album feels very well done. It's something that we've heard before, in case you've been a Nightingale fan for a long time, so it's not necessarily some bold new experiment that's transforming itself into a different direction. It's instead an album that just gets the point across and does so pretty well. Swano has always been the master of balance between chill and not chill. You know, that sort of lower pitch or that lower maintenance, that sort of softer side, as opposed to having everything have to roar you in the face and punch you square in your balls. Instead, this is an album that utilizes both sides of Nightingale's strengths and produces a fairly fine prog rock / prog metal, at times, album. One that I certainly recommend if you have not scoped it out before. I want to know what you guys think once you do, so please leave in the comments below one of your favorite tracks off of this album, or why you think that this album is either good or bad. I'm CoverkillerNation, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Take care.